Hello, everybody. So we are back to the suspension talks, and this time with Lauren Davis. What? I just need to send the request to be on video. Just give me a couple of seconds. And then we can start. So let's check. Lauren, I send you the request if you are watching me. So you need just to click somewhere. I think somewhere here. Let me open the door to my cat. No, okay, sorry, but if not, my cat got crazy, and then he will start to attack me. So,
Hi.
hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
All good, everything good.
Good.
Super
good.
happy to have you here.
Super busy lately. As soon as things opened up, hit the ground running.
Yeah, we open since like maybe 6 weeks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now everything looks kind of normal and
Yeah.
crazy.
People going out without masks and everything.
Yeah, all the classic like Corona never happens.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for accepting to be part of this. Really happy to have you. We will have I believe, a super good chat.
Yeah.
And talk about many things. For the people who don't know you, I would like if you can make a short intro, who you are, your name, where you're from, and then we will start slowly with some questions.
Sure. So my name is Lauren Davis. Pronouns are she, her. And I am a ritual performance artist as well as a blood witch. And I was the creator and founder, director of Coven of Ashes. And my current project right now is Sui Generis Magica. Which is where I do instruction and sell my provisions for blood magic work. I also teach Beto, which is a Japanese form of dance. And let's see. I have my hands in all kinds of pots. So I also do a sound healing event called Dark Ambient Sound Bath. And unlike traditional sound bath events, this focuses on trauma in a darker nature. It has electronic music, dark ambient music, and we do a lot of fun stuff like primal screaming and inducing like a lucid dream space, a lot of visualizations, a lot of breath work. So yeah, those are my three main projects, but they're definitely, it's a lot to manage.
And of course, in the next minutes, we will start to talk a little bit more deep in one of the in each topic, no, and also in what you do. I'm really interested to know a little bit more about it. Let's start from the beginning. How was the first contact for you with body suspensions?
Oh man, so I mean, I think I saw Strangeland was probably the first thing that I saw with body suspension. And of course, it's framed in like a horror movie, right? Hellraiser was probably another one where I saw hooks tearing at flesh. And although that looked really cool, The Cell was another good one. Although that looked really cool, my first real interaction and experience with it was when I found Constructs of Ritual Evolution. And I actually got a chance to see it live and in person, and how beautiful it actually was, taking something that can be so painful and visceral and to a lot of people scary and morbid. But they made it really beautiful, and that attracted me. it took me a while as a larger person to really wrap my head around doing it myself. It took me about 2 years of being in core before I got up the gumption to say, like, hey, is this even possible for me? You know, and they were like, oh yeah. And so I'm like, okay, no excuses now. I want to do it. I can do it. And you know, they led that facilitation, and from then on, I think from then on, I was a part of core since about 2008 or so is when I joined, and I fell in love with it. I am Navajo, and while that's not a bloodletting tribe, I did have an easier time explaining what it was to my mom, who is my Navajo descent, and she got it. She understood the spiritual headspace that it would invoke, and I love the tail. It looks so good on you.
Thank you.
She didn't necessarily want to be present for the suspension because she didn't know how she was gonna react seeing her baby, you know, potentially screaming on these hooks. But she did request that I film everything. And I'm really glad that she did request that because there was this moment when I first go up. We made it very ritualistic, you know, circle of candles, really dark ambient music playing. It was in a warehouse. And in the video, when I go up, it looks like I am speaking or possibly chanting, but I have no recollection of that at all. I don't doubt it, but it's definitely in the video, but there was nothing that I could remember actually saying except I believe I told Steve Joyner, stop the spinning. And he was like, you're not spinning. So it was a very static vertical suspension. I just went straight up, maybe swung around a little bit, but there was definitely no, you know, swinging. I was really nervous. And yeah, I think I do remember having to come down, not because of the pain from the hooks, but because of the lower half of my body pulling on my spine. That was what hurt the most. And that had a lot to do with my weight and how I carry my weight. But it didn't stop me. Didn't stop me at all. And I did my second suspension shortly after that. And luckily that one was in the woods, which was magical at night even. So.
Nice. And when you did the first one was kind of more like a private suspension or in a performance, right?
Right. The first one that I saw or the first one that I did?
No, the first you did.
Oh yeah, the first I did was private, and second one was private as well. I think the only time I've actually suspended for a show, there was only one time that I did a whatchamacallit from here. Like the underbust. The resurrection. Yeah. So that was the only one that I did in performance. I've had other gals from Coven of Ashes do suspensions because they wanted to. My experience suspending for a crowd was interesting. There was a lot of comments because of my body shape. They didn't think that I'd be able to lift off. And I was at a point in performance art where I think I got a little cocky and thought that, like, oh, I could skip the grounding and all of that. Like, I know what I'm doing. And huge mistake, because that ritual in particular was, I was surrounded by a circle of the women in Coven, and they came up one at a time and they wrote they wrote items on me of trauma that they had experienced. So whether this was, it was either patriarchal trauma that they experienced or just trauma in general that they wanted to rid themselves of. So they came up and wrote that on my body, all over my body, with lipstick, which then we threw away because now that it's touched my body, it's contaminated, right? So, you know, what ended up happening was as I lift from the ground, the idea is that I transmute that pain, right? And as I lift, or as I lifted, they would scream their responses to that trauma up at me. And it was an amazing feeling. I could feel their trauma. I could feel everything that they wanted to just throw at me. But because of that cockiness and not protecting myself and not grounding myself, it got stuck in me, specifically in the area of the resurrection piercings. And I was horribly suicidal and having crazy mental health stuff going on after that. And it actually kind of forced me to reach out to a wonderful practitioner of Reiki and actually seek help from the light, which was really foreign to me. And when she explained it to me, she said, "Don't think of it as light, think of it as fire." And I was like, okay, you get me. you get the headspace. So she was able to help me quite a bit move that energy through my body and finish that transference of energy and releasing it. It was a wonderful experience, but we did something very similar, a very similar ritual for Exhausting the Body Festival, which was where I met you. And instead of coming up and writing things on the Suspendi Noelia, we did them as sigils all over her body. And we did that beforehand so that we could really focus the energy that we were, sending up to her as she was ascending. So, when we were coming up with what we were going to do for that show, I was like, based on previous experience, I don't think I have it in me to do something like that right now. So, it's really important to, I think, to know your boundaries. And I'm much more of a private suspendee, but taking hooks, doing pulls, doing cheek spears, I can be a little more grounded with that. It's definitely challenging when you're managing a group of people and trying to keep them safe and also be in a ritual headspace. It's extremely difficult.
Like you explained in this resurrection position, and when you was or the people was painting the traumas,
Mm-hmm.
I think you learn in some way some like suspension is a really powerful thing, and when we suspend, we open some doors. What we
it
are
was a portal. It was just a portal. Yeah.
Yeah, you are talking about like traumas they put on you, no, and you are really open to get.
Yeah. And the idea is that I was wanting to be this vessel, this container, so that it would come into me, but with the physical pain be released through that. And instead it just got stuck. And I attribute that to not grounding myself properly and not properly finishing the ritual where I am able to, continue to ground myself. Yeah, I got a little cocky, and it was a few years deep into performing, and it was just like, okay, we got to get things rolling. We need to be on stage at this time, and my head was a million places, and it's just like that was the last thing, and that was my lesson, was that should not be the last thing on my mind.
So after that experience, what I can imagine was really strong for the mental and physical. What do you charge? How do you protect yourself now?
Really, do you mean in private ritual or public or both?
Rituals or also in public when you are in front of the audience?
Right. Well, private ritual usually starts a couple days beforehand. I make sure that the diet and the water intake is trying to be immaculate with that and as healthy as possible with that. I don't really withhold food, but definitely up the water intake. Ritualistically, there's altars that are built for the specific intention that I have going in with the suspension. So if it's something that I'm trying to manifest, that's where my focus is at. If it's something I'm trying to transmute, I write that out and make sure that that is solidly clear in my mind, so that that can be the exact focus. And then, right before I'm grounding, I'm connecting with either the piercer or a friend that is near me, and I'm trying to ground with them and breathe. Maybe some visualization techniques. I remember when I did my first chest suspension, I cried all day. That's all I did was cry, because I was like, this is going to be the most painful thing that I have ever experienced. And I knew that would be a really, really tough one. It was the one that I was scared of the most, so I had to do it. But I spent all day crying, and I needed that. So really, it's kind of just whatever my body is feeling, and then on top of that, my ritualistic practices that just kind of get my head in alignment with what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense. And then with shows, there's a lot of talk beforehand, a lot of talk beforehand about what the intention is, and that is built into the show that we are producing. And, pretty much everybody is told to, up their water intake, and kind of do the whole rigmarole, take care of your body. And then we have a grounding moment backstage where we all hold each other's hands, and I look in everybody's eyes, and I let them know that I'm grateful for them. And God, it's emotional just talking about it, but that I'm grateful for them, and I'm proud of them and us, and that it's going to be an amazing show. Keep the intention in mind. If anything goes off course, don't worry about it. Just look at me. I'll know. I'll know what's going on. But yeah, and then the other members are welcome to say a little piece if they would like to. If we have any people that are participating in a show that is maybe not a part of the group, they're more than welcome to join that group. Anybody who's involved, hold hands, tell each other how much we mean to each other, so we can be grounded and have an amazing experience no matter what happens. So those are the little rituals that happen. And then usually there's post ritual as well. If we're doing something on stage, a destruction ritual, the ritual isn't finished on stage. You still have to go make sure on a specific moon cycle that we are discarding whatever it was that we needed to get rid of, that the rest of it happens, because it doesn't just stop on stage. It doesn't start on stage, and it doesn't stop on stage. So that's a huge part of the ritual aspect.
Yeah, I believe also the same. When you start something, you need to finish it, no? Mm-hmm. So normally we start with a suspension, with the preparation, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Prepare your body, your mind.
Yeah.
The day of the suspension, but after you need to finish it, to don't leave these doors open and don't finish. Well, no?
And
So it's
these portals that are coming out of you, can't leave that shit open. That is no bueno.
yeah, this is super important. And how was the reaction of the audience?
Oh man, for the one that I did a resurrection at, it's funny. It was kind of at this nightclub that was also supposed to, it was kind of an underground thing in Hollywood, and it was also supposed to kind of have this S&M vibe to it. So I think in those kind of settings, the audience is more there because they're interested in how cool it looks, or how somebody is going through a lot of pain. I think that that's sort of the mindset that they were in. But there were definitely a few people that came up to me afterwards and wanted to know more about what was behind the ritual. And that's really, I kind of get off on that because I want to talk about it. I want to know that you want to know what the hell it is that we're doing, so there was, a mixed crowd in that regard. And then I remember there were some people in the audience that were just kind of body shaming people, and it was really disgusting. And I just kind of had to put it out of my mind and move forward with it. And my suspension was almost like a fuck you to them. Yes, I am a large woman, and yes, I can fucking do this. Let's see you do it. So there was definitely that going on. And I have no idea what happened to those individuals afterwards, if they left like, oh shit, but the reception was really great. I think the only drawback was, that there were people that had to make, comments about other people's bodies. That was really gross. But other than that, it was an amazing experience. And I had an interview afterwards by this gentleman that conducts interviews but then translates them into comics, which was really cool. So so he kind of like drew everything up from several of the rituals that he attended, and it turned out to be really interesting. But it's not often that I am asked to talk about one of those rituals immediately after they happen. And I'm sure you know that there needs to be some downtime and coming down from that ritual headspace. So yeah, it was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag of shitty comments and and a lot of love too. The girls all felt amazing after that show. Of course, they got a lot off their chest. I felt amazing until 72 hours later when I wanted to pull my head off. So,
for example, Mexicans, we have a kind of tradition to bleed, since like many, many years. It's something that's really connected for us. In my personal way, blood is the most precious and holy we have in the body, but also we need to bleed to make new blood. So it's in some way disintoxication, no?
Right.
You do the bloodletting. Can you explain me a little bit what's the background and how you do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we want to go in way back, I was a self-harmer as a kid, and I noticed that the desire for that was that sometimes there was the self-hatred that I was going through, and I was trying to physically express what I was feeling inside. And I seeing the blood, seeing the flesh open, just made everything more real instead of contained within my head, where it could feel very nuts sometimes, especially as a teen. And then there were times when I just really felt almost like turned on by the thought of doing that. and it wasn't coming from a place of self-harm. It was coming from a place of exploration, I think. So, that's, I think, where it started for me, is discovering that I can have different relationships with pain, and I was attracted to blood. The smell of it, the look of it, the stickiness of it, the coagulated goo as it dries, like everything about it. I just, and that extended to menstrual blood as well. And so when we started, like Coven of Ashes wasn't a bloodletting thing at first. We were strictly doing very primal Buto that moved a lot of people. And then we did another show, and it happened to incorporate a lot of women who were in the suspension community. So we didn't know much about the venue, and we're like, let's just do something on the ground, and we did like a 15 to 20 woman hook pull. And that I believe all of us, except our safety women around us, had cheek spears as well. And so for me, when I first found bloodletting, which is essentially just opening the flesh, right, in any kind of form, the cheek spear was probably the biggest head change I had ever experienced. It was just a zoom focus, that instantaneous headspace of like, yes, we are here, we are in magic zone. and I remember not wanting to take it out. And this was during a core show. I did my first cheek spear, and I remember Steve telling me, like, after a few hours, you need to take that out, otherwise you're gonna get locked jaw. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I needed to sit in the corner in the dark with this cheek spear in and just feel it all, So yeah, that started my love for the cheek spear stuff. But in general, I kept up with the experimenting with the body sensations. As I got older and studied more about magic, I really started to understand the value of that alternate headspace. And I realized that doing those things and participating in either, piercings or, even like piercings, cuttings, cheek spear, anything like that, that I could access that headspace pretty instantaneously. I kind of almost attribute it to like the feeling that you get when you're in a very intense and long meditation, that sort of lift off. I can feel that doing bloodletting in an instant. I don't want to call it a shortcut, because obviously you have to know what you're doing safely. So there are no shortcuts really, but in terms of headspace, it definitely brought me there quicker. And I was able to be in that Gnostic state for a longer period of time, instead of having to sit there and meditate for an hour or something like that. So, did that answer the question?
I believe it's kind of like when we get hooks with spears, and like you say, we get maybe the same goals of meditation, or like same. And I believe it's just another tool, no? It's different to what we can, or what we use normally, So other people do like, I don't know, extreme sports or boxing,
that high. Yeah, it is. I call it a blood high. Which is really what it feels like. It's a high that's really like no other. I've never felt that doing anything else, any other kind of like magic work where I needed to get in a certain headspace. The blood magic is just a different brand, all in its own.
And now talking about magic, how you mix these practices, like pullings or spears within magic?
I feel like those went hand in hand for eons, right? As soon as humans discovered that blood was integral to our being, it became a currency, it became a value, and it became the ultimate giving of oneself. And that's sort of where I was coming from with this, and also what I talk about in one of my workshops is blood as a currency. And people were sacrificed, not just blood, but throwing people into a fire or cutting them, lengthwise down. Like, I mean, people went nuts as soon as they discovered that that's what it was to keep, somebody alive, was the blood. But the way that I mix that is with that in mind, whatever my intent or manifestation is. I don't do bloodletting for every single magic thing that I do. It's got to be appropriate for what I'm doing. And I do have different theories on venal blood versus menstrual blood and the usage of both. Venal blood being something that is running its course through your body, it's active. And so to me, and I am not the authority on this, this is just my personal beliefs, but the theory for me is that since that blood is active, that is more a blood that I would use to access or manifest something that needs to come about, to go, to have action behind it. And menstruation is dead blood, right? It's something that we're shedding as women. Your body is going, oh, you're not making babies. Let me just get rid of this. So to me, that's dead blood, and that's used, in Malefica and certain hexes and things like that I can use, or banishments or things like that. But I know a lot of people who consider that lifeblood, and that's totally valid as well. I think whatever your intention behind it is the most important thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I practice it, with the intent in mind that if my goal is to actively manifest something, I'm using the venal blood. And you see a lot in my work, I'm bleeding from my face, and that's just because it's, so vascular and it's easy to get a lot from it. It's also very visceral feeling when it clouds your eyes. That Gnostic state is, you're gone, you're not here anymore. And I've had that happen to me on stage where my eyes are just filled with blood and I can't see anything. There's lights shining on me, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm here. Like, I'm just gonna be in it. And yeah, it happens when I do ritual, for myself at home. I do a lot of bloodletting for evocations, invocations, and a lot of like automatic writing and stuff like that. I like to dissect, if I'm bleeding onto parchment or something like that, I will dissect what the imagery says to me. So the blood to me creates its own sigils, and they can be read, right? So that's kind of how I work with it. And with hook pulls, generally that's me trying to connect with another person, right? So we're having an exchange of energy, and it's not so much about the blood in that source. It's more about the idea of sacred pain, connecting and feeling the energy move back and forth. And it's a really amazing feeling. But there's definitely this separate kind of schools of thought with, is the bloodletting, are you harvesting the blood for something, maybe down the line, or are you participating in a pain ritual? and the point is the pain and not necessarily the blood. So blood can come from that pain ritual, but it's not necessarily the point, right? So there's kind of two schools of thought that I have on that, but yeah.
Nice. Now, when we are talking about blood, do you know? I just got the idea, really spontaneous questions. Do you know if some cultures or tribes where they read the blood or the bleeding?
Well, where they drink it?
No, they read. They read. You know, like
Oh,
tarot.
but they read it. Yeah, like how people read
Tarot or
tea
coffee.
leaves or something like that. Yeah. I don't actually know. That was kind of something that just sort of came to be. That's something I definitely have to research.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know anybody else that does that. But yeah, I'm sure somebody has, you know. Nothing is new. These practices are ancient. Everybody's done everything already.
For example, talking about bleeding, if you work with other people, it will be like a client or like in a performance. When you get involved with a lot of people, for the people who is watching this and they don't know nothing about cross contamination, how to avoid to contaminate yourself and keep it safe and the others. How you work with that?
It's very, very difficult, and it has there's a lot of conversation about it beforehand and while we're creating the entire ritual. So we try to keep it as contained as possible. With the Exhausting the Body Festival, we did bleed on ourselves a bit, but the point was to bleed into our blood bowls so that can be contained, and it's not, even though we are tarping the floor, it's still within this container in front of us. So the rest that's running down will generally dry pretty quickly, and we're responsible for our own blood bowl. Come off stage, immediately clean yourself. But yeah, it's really, really difficult, and it's something that I used to get really frustrated with because I felt that it limited what I was trying to do, or the possibilities of what we could do. And so, there's definitely talk of consent. If there is a possibility of cross contamination, there is talk of consent so that we are going in, we realize that this might be something that may happen. A lot of times we're barefoot or topless or naked, and we have to put on these really obnoxious booties to exit the stage because we might have blood on our feet. So yeah, it's been a learning process. Like, we haven't been perfect. I haven't been perfect. I've had to learn, sometimes on set, behind the scenes. I'm learning, and I've been really fortunate to have piercers around me that were able to point that stuff out, because I am not a body piercer. I'm more of a performance artist and a hook piercer, which is totally different. But they were able to point that stuff out, and then we work around it. Then it's like, okay, well, how it's creative restriction to me. Now how do we complete this ritual around the idea that we are trying to limit the cross contamination? So it's hard. It's very hard, and you got to work with people that you trust. You have to have really good communication about it. Everybody's, we do rehearsals because we want to make sure that we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. So,
like you say, when you work with different people, like with body piercers or suspension practitioners, we work in a team. So we learn from each one, and of course we need to learn from mistakes. No, it's kind of normal in school.
Yeah.
For you, how was to learn how to put hooks?
Oh man. It was exhilarating. Piercing another person was, I mean, that's, I think, where I really noticed the blood high that I talk about. Cause it's different bleeding yourself versus bleeding somebody else. You're, maybe not feeding off of that energy, but you're feeling their energy change, and you're within such a close proximity of them. It's hard not to be affected by that. But yeah, it was amazing, and it was scary, and it was like, I don't want to hurt this person, but just, you gotta have confidence behind it, because if you don't, shit goes wrong. Shit gets stuck. I've buried a needle in somebody, and it was just like, a piercer came in and they were like, don't say anything, we're just gonna fix it. Because I look at them like, oh my god. But you have amazing people around you that are helping you through that process and watching you and guiding you, and I'm super grateful for those people and those lessons that I've learned there. And I've learned a lot in terms of being able to facilitate that stuff on my own now, and be able to give people who are interested in blood magic a lot of safety information that they need to know, which is again what I teach. So I do teach like a Blood Magic 101 course, which focuses more along the lines of cultural bloodletting, where it comes from different cultures. And then the second portion is safety and practical application to your practice. So, and again, I'm not the authority on that. I just kind of provide examples about ways to think about it. But I take them through safety first, because that is the most important thing. I don't need anybody coming to me with infections or something like that.
Yeah, always we try to keep it the most safe we can.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
most important things, because we have people who trust in what we do, so we need to give the best we can. No, of course, it's no school. And talking about your workshops, can you tell me a little bit more what kind of workshops you do?
Yeah, so currently I have 3 workshops available. One of them is basic introduction to Buto. So I go through a very brief history of where Buto came from and what its goals were, essentially, and who's practicing it today. And I mean, it's so different for each teacher that I've been to. They have a completely different way that they approach it, different methods. Some are very interested in choreography, and some are very interested in just free form. Feel your body, let it do what it needs to do. And so, I talk about that. We do very, very basic movements. I teach them like the ash walk, which is, oh my God, like, it's still difficult for me to do an ash walk, which is just essentially, for people watching, you're walking incredibly slow, like millimeters at a time. And all of your muscles are just tight and engaged as you're doing this very tiny movement, and it becomes meditative. But if your mind starts going, just like in meditation, you're starting to teeter totter, and so that's why it's still kind of hard for me. But it's always good to go back and practice those basic things. So it's available for download for anybody who wants to learn about that stuff. I'm also writing one right now about how I incorporate Buto into ritual, because it is a meditative thing, and because it is something that in and of itself can get me to that liminal space, that ritual headspace, just by itself. And I love that. And I just love sharing it again, by all means, I'm not an expert. I just love it so much that I want to share it with people, and I get asked to, so I figured I'd make a video and do that. And I want to do some more, actually, some facial exercises and what I do to prepare my body for Buto, because that's really important as well to keep limber and in practice. And then the other two that I have going on is the Blood Magic 101, which is the cultural aspect of where blood magic or pain ritual comes from. And I talk about Taipusam. I talk about the Lakota. I talk about the Catholics whipping themselves. Like, these practices are still done today. It's not this like crazy archaic thing. And the suspension community and a lot of the performance art community has taken the ideas of that and not culturally appropriating them. We're learning about these cultures, and we have a reverence for them, and we're not duplicating what they have done in the past or what they might still do in their private rituals. But we definitely there's like a common thread, right, of what headspace we're trying to access, or what currency of blood that we are trying to give toward our goal. And I think those kinds of concepts are intercultural, right? Like, there's humans, since we discovered that blood was integral to our being, started bloodletting, right? So every culture, and I encourage people to look deep in their culture and maybe find something like that within their culture. So yeah, there's the blood. That's the Blood Magic 101 cultural history background. And then 102 is we go through safety. I give people resources like APP in case they are interested in something like suspension, which is a lot of people come to me because they are interested in that. So I point them in the right direction. Worldwide, no matter where you are, there's somebody that you can go to. So that's a huge resource for them. Books, Sacred Pain, huge book. The research book with the intro by Fakir. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a woman that I follow called Sorceress Cagliostro, who is based in New York, and she's an amazing practitioner, very private. She doesn't do any kind of like performance. This is very sacred to her, but she does teach classes and is an amazing resource for blood magic in general. And then I go into how I incorporate, like what we were talking about before with the venal versus menstrual blood and how that could be attributed to your practice. So I'm kind of giving ideas of where people can take it for themselves. And then I've also been asked to do a 103, which I'm currently in development. People have requested classes on how do I do this? I don't know how to pierce myself. And, I'm not a body piercer, but I can certainly tell people how to do some play piercing. Essentially, I've learned it when I went to learn play piercing myself. It was from like a BDSM course or something like that, and we got hands on first day. So yeah, I want to bring that to people. It's becoming, I think, harder to access classes and workshops and things like that. There's a lot of people doing it and not a lot of people, I guess, talking about it, or maybe I don't run in the circles where they talk about it a lot. But bringing it to the public is seeing this more, and I would really hope that that education is valuable to them, so that they know that yes, you can hurt yourself, but don't hurt yourself. You know what I mean? Do it responsibly, and that as long as they have it kind of mapped out for them and it's presented in a way that's easy to understand, I think that they can really gain something positive within their practice. If it's like, if you're interested in it, fucking learn about it, go for it, and I'm trying to give people a hub to do that.
I believe it's really important. Like what you say is like we give the tools to the people. We show something, but in the safe way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want to bleed?
Yeah.
I will show you how, but to don't put in risk yourself. To don't cross the line. No.
Yeah.
Where is the line? No, but like to keep it more safe we can.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken blood magic courses from other witches, and I really just wanted to get a sense of what was not being talked about because of my history in the suspension world. I'm coming at it from a different point of view. We do often talk about suspension being ritualistic, but we don't often break it down ritualistically and safety wise, right? And so, what I'm trying to present to people is just this idea that yes, you can do it, mind over matter, and that the best way to do it is safely, and how to contain those things and how to contain that space. And it's still magical, it's still beautiful, it's still raw, and it will take you to different head places, but you need to be on point enough to actually know what you can and cannot do, or at the very least the risks that you're taking as you open your flesh. So yeah, we talk a lot about that in 102, and I talk about the things that they need to buy and where to get them, and if they want to skip all of that and they just want to try it for themselves, I made like a little pack for them, a little bloodletting pack, and it's the cutest little thing. But yeah, I mean, I kind of almost attribute it to like a needle exchange. If people are going to hurt themselves, why not give them the tools to do it correctly, to do it safely, and I that might be kind of a shitty example, but that's kind of how I think about it. Like, if somebody's wanting to do bloodletting, they're gonna do it, and at the very least, what I can give to them is here's where to get clean tools. Here's how to approach, a piercing community about wanting to learn more, how to find people, and how to, if you're doing this solo at home, how to, like I said, keep everything contained so that you're not cross-contaminating all over your house. Especially for people who have kids, like they'll touch anything on an altar.
In some way, that was the beginning of body suspension. No? So we try to interpret what we saw it in pictures or in books or in movies. The evolution of body suspension is growing a lot. We try to get the best equipment and gear to do it the most safe. Also the tools, the hooks. Also everything need to be sterile. New needles for each person. Like you say, if somebody want to do it, they will do it. But it's super important when you can get educate, when you can get information, and try to be the most safe you can. And something I really want to know, if you can tell me about this dark ambient sound bath.
Oh, what? Yeah. I love talking about it. So, like I mentioned before, it's different from a traditional sound bath. A traditional sound bath, for people who don't know, is that you're, laying on a yoga mat, probably in a yoga studio somewhere, and a facilitator is playing crystal bowls and chimes and possibly a little bit of drumming, And you move through visualizations and you let the music and the attunement heal you. And I was at a really dark place in my life when I found sound healing. And I thought, I'm doing therapy, I'm on medication, why not incorporate something that I feel so strong? I am so connected with music. It moves me, it guides my ritual. And so I thought, by all means necessary, I'm going to do my absolute best to help myself. So I went and I experienced a really amazing, thing and an amazing headspace. However, as I was laying there, I was like, man, this would be better with better music. Like, they pull out like the cheesy, and this is like, Caucasian people pulling out native flutes, and it's just like, homie, what are you doing? I get that they have appreciation, but please don't call yourself a shaman. So, and then there was a second one that I went to, and in order to bring us out of the headspace, they played Sarah McLachlan's "In the Arms of an Angel," and I was like, oh hell no, I am done. I am not participating in this. And I asked them afterwards, I said, can I give you a suggestion? And he said yes. And I said, maybe don't play pop music to bring us out of a very visceral place. I said, everybody's got their associations with specific pop music songs. And when you play that song, I think of poor, unfortunate little puppies and kitties that need to be adopted because of that commercial that the song is played in. So that's not a headspace I want to be in when I'm trying to heal myself. So, with that idea in mind, I knew, and I still know, a lot of electronic musicians that, either do industrial or they do noise or their own music, and contacted a bunch of them in just one message. And I was just like, hey, here's my idea. I want to do a sound bath that's not like the ones that are going on right now. Instead, we're going to do this in a dark way, and we're going to challenge people, and we're going to throw people into a very vulnerable place to deal with their trauma. And there was a couple people that were just like, fuck yeah, I'm on board. And I've been doing it for 5 years now. No. But we have different themes like exorcism, right? The general idea of exorcism is a cleansing, but we don't call it that because to the black sheep in the healing community, we might have different associations with that, right? To get rid of, to purge those nasty things within us, for me, it takes something way more visceral than just visualizing myself, in a pink mist. That doesn't work for me. That doesn't cut it. It might make me feel good for the time that I'm there, and in that way, it becomes like a Band-Aid. But I really wanted to get deeper and darker into the shadow self, and also give people the opportunity to take personal responsibility and accountability for their own healing. You're not coming to a guru that knows it all. I'm guiding an experience that you put your own meaning into. I try to keep it a little bit more vague so that they have the opportunity to put whatever it is that they need into their experience as they're listening to this music. And with the dark ambient music, with it being electronic, we're able to control like the hertz. And I'm not a musician, so I can't really talk too much on that. I'm more the facilitator and the guide for meditation and the breath work. But when I'm working with these musicians, it's like, yeah, let's give them this kind of a vibe, or this is the theme, and let's follow that. I don't even know how to speak musically. So, I might tell them something like, let's have this section sound like mist rolling through the woods at night. And they'll interpret that in whatever way they want to. And I encourage that. Every sound bath, even if it's the same theme, will sound different because there's different musicians doing it. It's live, it's improv. And so, yeah, it's been a really magical thing with the exorcism that I've mentioned. We did a show in Oakland in a warehouse. We had about 45, 50 people in this warehouse doing primal screaming. And I was just like lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. It just it made my blood boil in the most positive way possible. It was just thrilling. It was exciting to know that people were getting the help that they needed, and people would approach me afterwards and tell me about their journey. I've never actually been through my own creation. I'm always facilitating it. So I love to hear what people get from that kind of healing. They get a lot of visualizations. They deal with a lot of fears. They're crying. I've had to just kneel down and hold people as they're just uncontrollably crying, letting go of whatever trauma it is that they're trying to move through. So yeah, I want to help people, but I want to do it in my way. That tends to be a little on the darker side, but and this also causes a little bit of a problem when I'm trying to book a space, because I'll go to a yoga studio and I'll explain what it is, and they're like, oh, we don't want that dark energy here. No, absolutely not. And then they have a yin and yang in their sign in the window, and I'm like, do you not understand what that means? Obviously you don't, because this is just, we're providing the other half, right? You provide the light, and that's all you can do that. There's so much value in that, but there's nobody providing the other side of things. And I also kind of think about it as guiding people through the headspace of a suspension or a blood ritual without actually doing that. So they are getting, they're pulling out that vulnerability that we all feel right before a suspension. And they're guided through that journey. And then they're also given time where I stop talking, and they're able to have their complete own journey.
True.
Yeah.
We like to work like that with the suspensions. When you say about the music, we have a couple of times where we are facilitate private suspensions with live music, where the person who was playing depends of the mood of the situation, and that helped a lot to the suspended, to let it go.
Yeah.
Also, we start to work with frequencies, what could be really powerful tool, mixing with body suspensions, because with the frequencies you can alter the states, no?
Yeah.
And you can be like,
can manipulate them, and manipulate not in a bad term, but just guide their experience. Yeah. Yeah,
that was really interesting. Did you facilitate suspensions too, like private one?
Not on my own. I've done so at, there used to be, I'm not sure if they're going to do it anymore, but there used to be an all-female or all-femme suspension camp out that was happening that I would facilitate there. And then I facilitated at Mecca, and a couple times some private suspensions in California, in either the Bay Area or Southern California. But it's always with a team. I still don't have enough experience or trust in myself to do especially more complicated suspensions. So I can do very basic ones, but I need to bring in a rigger, to help me do those things. I don't know anything about that, and I'm looking to learn. Shout out to Charlene. We've been having those conversations. But yeah, I my goal is to be more self-sufficient in that way, because I feel like to have an extremely intimate suspension experience is probably the most powerful. I've had amazing, powerful experiences in a room full of thousands of people, but I think, especially for your first time, just like go deep, get in, ignore everything around you, you know? And I would love to be able to do that for people. I feel the energy of first time suspendees on a whole other level. At Mecca, I could feel if it was someone's first suspension from 50 feet away. And I would just walk towards that suspension and learn that that person was doing their first suspension. And it was just, there's something about that energy. And I talk about this, it's this moment where you can tell in the person's head and in their heart, they're like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't. Even as their little tippy toe is still touching the ground, and you watch that moment change, and they're just like, oh fuck, I'm doing it, you know. And that is such magic right there. That's, you're watching literal magic happen, and it's an amazing experience. And I really want to be in a place where I can just facilitate start to finish, do the rigging myself, and not have to rely on other people, because shit doesn't work out sometimes. Scheduling is a bitch, and you know, I would just like to be more self-sufficient in that way.
I believe you will be a great facilitator. Is I believe also it's like super important for the first timers to have like a good set or like environment, safety space to do different suspensions. Sometimes like facilitators, we try to focus into do the most beautiful rigging, the best technical parts. We don't need to forget we are suspending a human being who have feelings, emotions. They're afraid. Sometimes the head make a complot about what's going on. So I believe we need people like you who is really sensitive, can help them to guide to have a good suspensions, because I believe it's the most important when you are in good hands.
Even if it's really simple, it's
the most simple, sometimes the most powerful.
Right, exactly. And I still believe, you know, that the vertical suicide suspension is, because of the movement it allows, it can be one of the most powerful things. Some people don't want pain all over their body and to be stagnant in that space. By all means, there are beautiful creations that are happening, but we got to remember where this came from, right? This came from a lot of devotion, and this came from a very sacred space where it was about the person suspending, or the person devoting themselves to something. And you know, art suspension is fucking gorgeous, and I truly believe it's probably more geared towards people that are very experienced in suspension, and they don't mind hanging there awkwardly for a long time. But when you're bringing this, like you said, to somebody brand new, they could be intimidated by those sorts of things, and some of them are even like, is this too simple? Is what I'm doing too simple? You know? It's like, no, if that's what you're pulled to, keep it simple, fly, you know? This is about you and being in your head, and the exchange of energy. And yeah, I think there's a great need to pull back a little and realize that this is ritual that we're doing. It can be art, but it was created as ritual. And we need to honor that and remember that.
Yeah. Sadly, we are wrong with the time, but I believe this is the best end we can have.
Absolutely.
And also, I want to add, it's really important for the people who facilitate suspensions to remember, put out the ego, leave it in the door when you are doing a suspension.
Yes.
Don't forget the human part, like we was talking in the last minutes. It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And always I say suspension is a powerful tool where people can see heaven or they can see hell if you don't know how to guide them.
Truly. And I'll add to that, if you're a practitioner, know your boundaries. Know when you need to stop for the day, because you're taking on a hell of a lot of energy, and maybe don't push yourself to do that extra suspension, because the people that are suspending can feel it. They can feel that you're done. They can feel that you're tired. They can feel that you're over it. And as much as you want to do it for them and provide that experience for them, it's totally okay to sit that one out or guide them to somebody that can facilitate it. If it's a time constraint, someone else can do it. If it's that they want you to suspend them, talk with them, tell them, like, my energy is depleted and I want my energy to be fully on this ritual for you. This doesn't have to be a race. This doesn't have to be let's get 86 suspensions in by the end of the day. This is ritual, and we have to remember the energy behind that, and the energy that we're giving and receiving as facilitators, and that they're getting and giving to us as well as suspendees. So really important to have your boundaries and trust your gut. If you're tired, that's okay. You don't have to push yourself.
We are humans and we have limits, so we need to know our limits.
Exactly.
And also about this, shit, I forget it. What I want to say. But yeah, it was something about the energy. Last question. If now we are talking about this, also it's really important for the facilitators to protect yourself in the energy way, not just the gloves.
Right.
But also it's really important to protect yourself. You want to give a tip about it?
Yeah, you need to go into it grounded and not exhausted. You want your energy to be there with that person, I'm assuming, I'm hoping. And you should be doing, as a facilitator, I feel like you should be doing just as much self-care as the person who is suspending. Making sure you're hydrated, making sure you've slept, making sure that you can be on your game and give them the best experience possible. It will help you to not make mistakes. It'll help you notice the intricacies or nuances that you might have with that other person, or things that, very small things that you may not notice. That kind of stuff can be overlooked if you're exhausted. So take care of yourself as a practitioner. Even in magic, when I'm helping people, I need to be in the right headspace to help somebody, because if I'm not taking care of myself, then how the hell are you going to take care of anybody else? But yeah, that would be my big thing, is know your boundaries, know your limits, and trust your gut.
So Thank you so much
Yay.
for being part of this. It was amazing.
Thank you for having me. Very honored.
The same. And if it's okay for you, I will keep it in my profile, in my Instagram. I will tag you so the people who miss this time or they was late, so they can watch it every time.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe I will put it in YouTube or some another platform.
Sounds good.
I will let you know before.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful time. Anytime you want to talk.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody who was online. Was Lauren Davis, and we will see you next Friday with Perla. Yeah, next Friday will be no live, but 9 p.m. Berlin time, 2 p.m. Mexico, and the rest of the world. I don't know what time will be. Just checking internet. Wherever you are, 9 p.m. Berlin time will be online in my profile. Thank you so much for watch this, and thank you to Lauren, and see you next week.